Can I pick up a few comments? First of all, about Lord Cameron. Sally Wilton says, recent events regarding Lord Cameron prove that he's a decent man who puts right above party positions. He was fundamental in persuading the Republicans via Trump to vote for Ukraine aid at the last minute, and the first country to allow Ukraine to defend itself with British weapons into Russia. He must be hopping mad about Sunak. Interesting. Well, of course, the rhetoric about supplying weapons to Ukraine is there, but they still haven't arrived, as Zelensky pointed out to Biden yesterday, and Biden has made more promises. But promises are not enough when faced with a ferocious Russian bear. And that Russian bear is not going to turn back because people have made promises. Seaside Army says, a decent man, bail out the bankers or bail out the people. It's a good point. I don't think the fact that Cameron has to doff his cap to his masters, I don't think that necessarily means that he's a fundamentally bad man. I think he's a fundamentally good man, and he's probably the last of the serious debaters in the House of Commons. He listens to what other people say, and he responds. In fact, his performance at the dispatch box in front of Jeremy Corbyn, or against Jeremy Corbyn, was spectacular. His performance at the dispatch box with Gordon Brown was spectacular. David Cameron is a very fine parliamentary performer, and I think also fundamentally a good man. And I'm slightly surprised to be saying that, because when he was much younger, I really didn't care for him. He was my own constituency MP for a short while, and he was extraordinarily helpful at a seriously difficult time when we were short of paperwork that had been stolen by a scurrilous Greek lawyer. And within 3 days, because he was Foreign Secretary, because he was leader of the opposition, he was able to ring up the Foreign Secretary, and within 3 days, an entire box of paperwork was delivered to the Foreign Office, which we collected, and it was fundamental in sorting out the case we were taking through the European Court of Human Rights, which was about torture. So I am grateful to him, and I think you're right, he is fundamentally a good man, and he must be hopping mad at Sunak's behaviour, which is beyond the pale. And I would hope that he gave Sunak firm advice. And but I have no inside knowledge. So how would we know? Info Illness says, another example of how the BBC is obeying its political masters, a staged debate. Who would have guessed it? No, I think quite the opposite to a staged debate. This was a fascinating example of the smaller groups challenging the status quo and being heard and getting rounds of applause. And it was also an opportunity to hear Stephen Flynn, one of the other great parliamentary speakers. In fact, in today's world, I don't think there is anyone in Parliament who can hold a candle to Stephen Flynn. And he is fundamentally brilliant, and one of the few people in the modern Parliament who obeys the rubric that you don't read from paper when you're asking questions. You've learnt it. You've done your homework. You can actually speak to the speaker. There is one more I wanted to pick up. Oh yes, Andrew Harwood. Thank you, Andrew. Your ex-boss, I think you mean Farage, which is a loose understanding of the relationship we had. Your ex-boss may well have won, Tim, but he was absolutely roasted on Have I Got News for You last night. Yes, he was, wasn't he? I might come back to that one, by the way. But I don't think he won last night. Whatever newspaper report you're reading, Farage presented his tropes, his trays, and it was Farage, but there was nothing glittery there until he came to the very end. And then he scored quite a good point. It was quite a bit of one-upmanship. And it was clever. But other than that, there was nothing clever. The cleverness came from the other people. Some people have questioned why I was impressed by Penny Mordaunt. I was impressed by her poise, which slipped a few times. And yes, I think she's under an obligation, I suspect, to repeat the £2,000 line, and she's under an obligation to toe the party line. I think she balanced a rejection of Rishi Sunak and a caution about Nigel Farage, because should the Labour Party win, which is almost certain, on July the 4th, and Sunak's mistakes make it all the more certain as the weeks go by, should Labour win, and should Sunak resign, which he will have to, I think he would have to resign even if the Conservative Party won, then Penny Mordaunt, assuming she was re-elected to her very, very small majority in Portsmouth, she would be in the running to be the next leader of the Conservative Party, and I think she would make a good leader. She would be significantly more uniting than a Suella Braverman or, God forbid, a Priti Patel. Why do I put it in those terms? Because Priti Patel is inventive and maniacal. Suella Braverman simply repeats what she's been told by Tufton Street. Suella Braverman has not had an original idea in ages. Suella Braverman would be a terminal event for the Conservative Party, but she wouldn't be an impossible adversary for Keir Starmer. Priti Patel would be quite a threat. And also, I think, a terminal event. Penny Mordaunt might be a breath of fresh air and might be able to reunite the Conservative Party. It's not an impossibility. But she would be a good foil for Sir Keir Starmer. I worry that that she will lose Portsmouth, and also, I worry that we're going to lose a fine parliamentarian, because she is a good parliamentarian, and more than that, she's somebody who is courteous and has a good sense of humour. And there are photographs emerging of the end of the debate with very, very charming photographs of her and Angela Rayner together, giggling. It's heartwarming when you see that relationship beyond the political squabbling that goes on in front of us, when you see that backstage stuff, because all of these people are invested in the same business. And that's something that we need to remember. And they are committed to public service, which is, again, another thing that we need to remember. They're not out to line their own pockets, necessarily. There are some who do, but I don't think Penny Mordaunt or Angela Rayner belong to that group at all.